Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're calling in from. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Donald McCormick, and I will be guiding you through the new features of Squirrel 1.12, and they will break into 4 different sections. First of all, we're going to look at 3 small things to start with. So just 3 of the smaller features in 1.12 to get us started with. Then we'll look at some of the bigger features first, the new property panels, then the new object browser, and finally we'll look at the new add-on capability that's been added to 1.12, which really does open up a whole range of capabilities for Squirrel and the Squirrel ecosystem. As usual, most things here will be demos, so only a few PowerPoint slides, and we will be recording the session, so we'll send you a link afterwards. Feel free to watch it again or share it with your colleagues. So three small things to start with. And those 3 things are chart label number abbreviation, canvas highlight, and more fonts. Probably doesn't mean much, but we'll have a look at them in the product and they will become clear. So the first thing is abbreviated numbers in charts. So what I've got here is a little Squirrel project. It's got a chart based on this data here. The data is just a random number times this number here. And this number is 10 to the power of this number here. So every time, and this slider connects to this, every time this goes up, the number here goes up by an order of magnitude, and so do all of these, which results in this situation here, where if I go up, then we see that the labels on the chart go up here, and by the time I get to 10 to the 15, these are like 1,000 trillion, I think it is, and clearly you don't want that on your charts. Before 1.12, there was really nothing you could do about that, but from 1.12, we've added this new option, and if I come down to the y-axis here, and I can see I just got this option here, abbreviate large numbers. So if I just simply click that, that's all you need to do. Now, if I come in and debug this, what you'll see is as it goes up, see it's now said 10K rather than spelling out 10,000. If I go higher, it goes to a million, and higher, goes up to billions, and eventually to trillions. So it keeps the chart nicely formatted despite the ever increasing numbers. So you can now get a chart which spans multiple orders of magnitude in the data without the y-axis being a problem. The same is also true. You can do the same for data labels in the chart as well. So all the numbers in the chart can now be formatted like that, which makes life a lot easier. So that was the first thing. The first small thing was number abbreviations. The second one was what I call canvas highlighting, and that is in 1.12, as you hover over a component, it lights up that you're on top of it. And obviously, if you click when it's there, it gets selected. Now, for individual components, that's not necessarily the most significant thing, but when you come to select multiple components, it really does come into its own. So for example, if I click and hold here and I'm dragging, so now I can see I'm selecting that. So I can see what's selected. If I move up here, I can see that the text label is selected as well. I go up here, I can see that all 3. So if I let go now, all 3 of those are selected. Whereas if I just wanted the 2 at the bottom, then I know it's that there, or maybe I just wanted the label on the chart and I can see exactly when it's selected. So when selecting multiple objects, it can be really useful to be able to see what you're about to select and get it right before you release the cursor. So it's a tiny sort of ease of use improvement, but can make a difference, particularly in big projects where you've got lots of components. And then the third little thing that we're starting with is fonts. So if I come into the chart and look at the fonts we've got here, then if I drop this list down, it's maybe not apparent, but that list is much longer than it was before, probably sort of 15 or 20 extra Google fonts that we've actually added. So there's a much wider range of fonts available in the product today. And indeed, if you want to see what those are the fonts that we have added. This is a precursor, we hope in the future, to be able to allow you to add custom fonts in the same way. So custom fonts would just appear in that list. But for today, the first step we've taken is to add more fonts to that list. So you now have a much wider list of fonts that you can use in the product. So those are the 3 small things to start with. And so we're now going to move into the chunkier updates. And the first one of those is in the design. One of those in the designer is the property panels, and we've done 2 significant things to the property panels. One really quite big one small one, but they're both been asked for by customers. And so we'll look at those in turn. So if I come back into then the first thing I'm going to do is add a push button. And what we'll see is that when we first of all add a push button, we've now got two tabs on here on the property panel. The all properties, which is the same as it was before, and the quick setup. And quick setup is something. I mean, people haven't said, "Oh, we want some quick setup property in the property panels," but what people want is an easier way to get into a Squirrel and an easier way to use it as they go along. So what we've done is taken the most used, the most useful properties and put them together in one sort of easy to access sheet at the front of easy access tab at the front of the property panel. You'll notice there's no accordions. If we go to the all properties, you have these accordions where you can open them up, and when you open up the accordions, it can be quite hard to find something. But here it's just the quick setup is just one property page with all the things you might want to do on it. So here, for example, for the button, we've got the button text, the source and destination of the data insertion, and some styling, and that's it. Obviously, if you want to get to the other properties, you can go back to this. These are the property sheets that were exactly as they were before. But hopefully most of the time now you'll be able to spend in here because it's much easier to use and offers, so I would have said, up 70 to 80% of the functionality that is commonly used in most components. Other interesting things here is, for example, this is not just sort of it's not the same as the other colors, and the reason for that is it's doing a lot of work. Other colors elsewhere in Squirrel and all the colors on the all property sheet change one color at a time, whereas this color here is actually a sort of a theme color for this component, if you like. And so when I click on it, if I now watch what happens if I change this. So I'm up here, watch the button. It's got a purple it's got purple background but black text. But if I move it to be darker, at some point the button text goes white, so it keeps up the contrast so you can always read it. So it's doing in the background, it's changing different things depending on what the color is. And then, for example, let me just take this, let me take it down to there, say, and so I'm going to choose this this color here. If I now run it, what you'll notice is that the hover color has also been based on that theme. It's a slightly darker version of that color. If I come out here and say I'm going to go to maybe a green color, then when I go here, the hover color has gone green. So it's one color that manages the whole button, which makes life a lot easier. Now, it's certainly possible to go in. If I click on the see all properties here, it'll take me into the styling section of the all properties sheet, and I could go in here and say I want sort of the default style now to be something else. I'll maybe make this yellow, and that will just change the default style on the button. So if I was to close this and run that now, it would be the yellow that I've just chosen, but the green that had been chosen for me as part of that style. So I've got complete control as I had before, but if I just do it from the quick setup property panel, quick setup tab, then it will choose appropriate colors all the way down, if you like. Now that I have changed it in the all properties page, this has appeared here because I've now got, so if you like, I've got two different colors which are not both controlled by this. If I want to go back to everything just being controlled by this one color, then I can click here to reapply the accent color. Off I go, and I'm back with those two sort of shades of green in here. So it's a really nice feature which helps. It just makes it much easier to have a color scheme, but then have all the other colors follow on from that. And similarly, it makes it easier. Before you could make a button, so that button is square. I could go so that's button square, and then that button's a little rounded, and then that makes it even more rounded. Now you could do that before in Squirrel, obviously, using the corner radius, but it was hard to find. But something you want to do, some people want to do commonly, so we put it up front. Again, if I click on the all properties, we'll see down here that the default state we've got the corners at 18 here. Whereas if we go back and check that one, and then we go to all properties, the corners come down here, the corners have gone down to 0. So it is controlling these more detailed properties inside all properties, but they've been changed by a much more visible, much more user-friendly way of doing it on the front there. So it just makes life much easier. And I say hopefully much of the time you'll be able to live in these quick setup properties, which are much easier to find and much easier to manipulate. And then further than that, so the push button is relatively straightforward. We've done more things in something like the drop down. Now, what's quite nice about this is when I'm sort of building a Squirrel project, so I'll set the labels on a drop down, then where I want to insert it. And usually the next thing I want to do is then say, well, what is going to be displayed in it? So I would have to go into the property sheet, find the selected item property further down the property page, and then and set it to label and then set it to a particular thing. Now we've got this simple one here. I can just say I want the first item selected. So if I was to do A, B, C on here, and then wire that up like that, then you see because it's first selected, I can have none selected or first selected there, so I can do it really quickly and easily. And again, because first item selected is usually what you want, and we've put it up there. Now, if you want to go and change that to have all the options you had before, again, you can just click See All Properties, and this is great because before, as I say, finding where we often got asked, how do I select the item in a drop down? Well, you click in here and it takes you straight to that property, and so I can change it in here. I've got all the options I had before, so maybe I'll put it as a label and I'll bind it to this cell. I actually bind it to the cell A there, which is doing the same sort of thing. So I've got all those choices. Now, if I go back to quick setup, what you'll see is I've no longer got the choice on here because I've made a selection in the all properties, which is incompatible with the simple choices I've got on the quick setup. So it says you linked it to a spreadsheet cell, so you have to configure this in all properties. And clicking here takes me back there. And of course, if I unbind that and put it back to position 1, then I go back to quick setup, then I've got my simple property setup left again. So it's the all properties is context sensitive. It takes me to where I want to go in those properties, and if the what I've set in all properties is compatible with here, I'll see the simple selection. Otherwise, I'll be advised to go and have a look at the all properties to change things. So hopefully we've made both most of the things you need to do routinely available in the quick setup, but also made the transition between quick setup and all properties as easy and as easy to use as possible. One other thing to note is that sort of if let's say I go to drop down and I am doing drop downs, and I'm in the middle of some sort of complicated, sort of more detailed stuff in all properties, it will remember that on buttons I was in quick setup. It will remember also that I was in all properties on drop down. So it does sort of the useful thing of remembering where you were on a component type by component type basis, so that and it's one of those things. If I click on a button and want to change the text on a lot of them, then I click on different ones. It'll all be available and open as I move between those components. So it does all the sensible things that help you just make use of this quickly and easily. And then the other thing that I mentioned in this, in sort of in terms of property panels, then is one thing that you would have seen if you'd noticed when I click up the color, I've got this recent colors patch down at the bottom of my color picker. So I can pick blue there, and that will choose that color. I can pick this this red here, it chooses that color. And notice if I come in here and say I'm going to choose, I don't know, maybe a bright yellow. There we go, put that bright yellow up there. So I've chosen that and I close it. Now if I open it again, you'll see it's put that in there. So it cycles around the last most recently used 10 colors, which is great for making things the same color, for being able to apply styles more easily. Once you've got a color, you can use it, and that will persist. If I, for example, if I close this down now, say I go to a new, don't save that, but I add a new push button in here, those colors are all still the same color, so it persists both across different projects, but also persists between opening the designer again. So they're permanent, will stay there for as long as you're sort of using the product, so you can have them as the ones that you want to see. So so very much as a much requested feature, just to make it easier to work with colors. You don't have to take the hex values and start sort of copying them around between properties. So that's the property panel side of things. The next thing we're going to look at is the object browser. So the object browser has been actually completely rewritten for this release for 1.12, and a lot of that was to do with performance and for much larger projects. It was actually consuming quite a lot of resource, and so in the background we've changed the way it's implemented so that for really large projects it should handle those better. But we also took the opportunity to add some new capabilities in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to add a text label, and then I'll maybe copy and paste that a few times. So I've got a number of them, and then what I'm just going to do is select them all, and I will actually no, I won't select them all. I'll do that, select them all, and then line them up. So there we go. I've got a number of text labels. Actually, maybe that's a few too many. I don't want that many, so we'll just spread those out there. So all right, so we got those there. So now what you'll notice is that if I add a new one, before, and you may not realize this, but it'll probably look a little strange to you and subconsciously. If I add a new one, so this is 9. It's added at the top, and the reason it's added at the top is it's added at the front of the view order. So, for example, it's easier to see if I put a rectangle on here. When I add a rectangle, it's in front of everything else. It obscures everything behind it because it's at the front, and so now the top is the front. And we've changed that. That was exactly the opposite from previous versions of Squirrel, where it would have been at the bottom. But we changed it because so many design tools use this idea that the topmost one is the front, and then going down to the bottom one is at the back. So we've changed it to be compatible with other tools in the market. So it should be a little easier for people to use and be used to, rather than having to say, oh, it's Squirrel, so it's the other way around. And obviously, if I want to move this, if I can move this in a number of ways. We've added a right-click menu in here, so I can move it, say, to the back, which pushes it all the way down there, so everything's in front of it. I can move it sort of bring forward, so it puts it up one at a time like that. And of course, I can also drag this like that, and you can see as I drag it around, the labels behind it are getting obscured by it as it goes. And there it's at the back, and then it obscures them all if I put them right at the front. So it's nice. Now, one thing to notice is that if I let's take these and group them together. Then if I say, let me put this text label up. Actually, no, let's put the rectangle up here. If I click this text here, so if I put the rectangles on top of it, and so I want this text to be at the front. If I right click it and say send to front or bring to front, it only does it inside the group. If I want it in front of the rectangle, then I would have to drag it out and actually put it up there. Now it's there, but it can't be in the group. Things on groups lie in the same layer of the view, so you can't move them to the front other than inside the group. So that's why when I show that again, if I put that in, if I maybe put label 3 in there, if I now put label 5 to the front, bring to the front, only brings it up as far as there. And so you've so that's why it's not going to the top. If you want it at the top, you're going to have to drag it. And then the big thing that we've added, the other sort of really significant thing that we've added to the object browser is search. This is for bigger projects. This will be a godsend. So I've got lots of sliders in here. These sliders are inside various groups. But what if I want to just see my sliders? Well, I can now search, and I can search for things like, this is called title underline. So if I do under, they'll pick out because its name is underlined, but it also matches on the name of the type of a component. So if I type slider, it gives me all the sliders in my project. So it's really easy to get them and change their properties because I can get them all at once because I can search on them. If I just click on the cross here, the search is undone and I go back to my normal view. So again, it's something that we've been wanting to put in the product for a long time. I know a lot of you have wanted to have it. So there it is now. It makes working with large projects considerably easier. So that's the designer updates of the property panels and the new object browser. And then the last thing to look at, and it is the most significant thing that we've done with 1.12, is add-ons. And this is the ability to extend Squirrel capabilities without having to release, well, without us having to release a new version of the product, but also giving other people, literally anybody else, the opportunity to add capabilities to Squirrel should they so want to. So these add-ons can be, as I say, extended by us at Squirrel between releases, which means that we can move much more quickly if there are things that we need to do or things that people want. But it also means that anyone else, customers, partners, independent developers, anybody can now create a capability for Squirrel and have it in the Squirrel marketplace for people to subscribe to. and it just makes it really easy to do. It covers components and functions. It's not yet connections. We are working on that, and we'll hope to have that at some point in the future. But today it's just components and functions, and it's really quite deep integration with the rest of the product. There's a new marketplace that we'll look at where you can subscribe to these. And there's also really smooth integration inside the designer with custom property panels, and it really does feel much more, because we've had add-ons for the last couple of releases, but those felt like sort of add-ons at the edge of the product. The new framework for adding add-ons not only makes it possible for third-party partners and customers to do it, but it also it embeds them inside Squirrel in a much smoother sort of way. So what I'm going to do is let's have a look at this inside the product. If I come to just open another project here. So the way that these appear is you will find them either here in terms of, so get more add-ons. These at the below the line here are the add-ons that I have added into my version of my designer. This list will be different for different people because it's depend on what you've subscribed to. The other place you can find them is in functions. So as I say, functions are also going to be added in, and so under this is the main list of built-in functions to the Squirrel designer, but these are the ones that sort of are added in there. You can manage them by coming to here, going into your Squirrel account. You can do this from on the cloud and a web browser. You can also do it from inside the product. My add-ons, and there are all the add-ons that I have subscribed to. I can view information on them. I can delete them if I don't want them anymore. And I can also I can get to the marketplace in many ways. I can click here, or if I click on here, get more add-ons, it'll take me out to the Squirrel marketplace. And so here I have these are the ones you'll see. You should keep checking back here because we will be adding to this, and other people will be adding to this as we go on. And so if I pick one of these, I think I've got them all installed. So when I come in here, you see it's saying, so I could get that add-on. I'd click on it, and it would say you've got the add-on. Then once I've got it, I need to restart Squirrel for it to show up. So it won't show up until the designer is closed down and started up again. You don't need to reinstall the designer, you just need to close it down and start it up again. And so a good example of the integration can be shown by, let's have a look. I want to put this toast add in here. So this is just a thing which pops up a little message if you want a transient message to a user in your project. So this is a toast pop-up. And the way that it works is you need a piece of text in here, which has 3 pieces of information. If we look at this, I've got a message in here, and I can have an icon with a background, and those icons be information, success, warning, and error. So let's say I want to put an information up, then I would have a piece of text would be info, and then maybe I'm alert, and then a line character, and then maybe it's a database message, that will be the title, and then the message is data successfully updated. So that is a message that I want to show just as something's happened in the background, just to let the user know. They don't want them to have to dismiss it. And so just to simulate that happening, I'm going to put a button on here, and I'm going to say I take that message and I'm going to push it into this cell here. Put that yellow because that's standard. And so now what I'm going to sing, this message is going to be from there. So what happens is when this cell changes, it'll pop up, that triggers the pop-up. It'll use the information to populate that, and it'll stay here for 5 seconds. It's a bit long for a demo, so I will put it just to 2. So if I debug, nothing happens, nothing on there, but now the update happens to my database. I click the button, that goes there. User doesn't have to do anything. 2 seconds later, it disappears. If I can move it up to give myself more space, you can have multiple ones. It'll sort of fade away. So you can have, if there are 2 or 3 updates that happen all at once, they'll show and then fade away. So it's a really nice little extra component. Probably wouldn't have happened if we didn't have add-ons, but now we have add-ons. They're there. But notice that here it's very much a sort of a standard property panel complete with the built-in property, the picker, the recent colors and everything else. It really does feel like a part of of Squirrel is all the capabilities you would expect and delivered in the same way as native Squirrel components. So it really is hard to tell that it's anything different, which just makes it easier to use for everybody, and it's just a really nice experience. As I say, the other one are functions, and they're just the same as components, only they don't have a user interface. So here I've got a unique list one here. I can add it. I'm going to say my source data. Let's say 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. So I want those to be my source data, and then I'm going to put those into my destination here. So you just see as I do that, it's taken and deduped the list, so it's now just the unique values in there. And that actually is also dynamic at runtime, just as you would expect of a function. So if I put a text input here and put it in, maybe change that 3 there. So now you'll see, watch this list. So I've got that 3. If I change that to 33, obviously it stays there. But if I change it to 2, then there's 1 less on the list because I've already got a 2 and it's deduplicating it. So it's, again, very easy to use, exactly the way that our other functions work, complete with a property sheet with an icon. It just feels like it's part of the product. And there are many of these. You can go and see all of these in the marketplace today. Here's a project which actually combines them all. As you see this in the marketplace, you've got a card slider, a countdown timer, a file loader, the ability to load a file from a user at runtime, so that's just uploading some data and appears in the spreadsheet, and we can put it in a scorecard, image carousel. Lottie Animations has got hundreds, maybe thousands of animations you can now embed in, create QR codes. Double slider is one that people have asked for. The Toast one, a YouTube player, star rating, so you can say how much you like something. The ability to copy something to the clipboard, a history function, the unique list, and as I say, that list in here will be out of date before too long, because we will be adding more to the marketplace, and hopefully other people will be adding more as well. So if there's anything you would like to see in there, let us know. We've got a list of that we want to produce, but I'm always looking for more ideas. We're not really touching on it today, but if you want to build your own, there are 2 great places to start. The documentation for building an add-on is at developer.squirrel365.io, or if you search YouTube Squirrel365 developer, the first link you get should be the Squirrel developer channel on YouTube, where there's a recording from last week's webinar, which Matt did, taking you through the whole process of building it's an hour-long webinar to the whole process of building an add-on from scratch, which is, and it's if you know a little bit of JavaScript or HTML and HTML, then they're relatively straightforward to do. Although, as pains to point out, ordinary users, normal users of Squirrel, don't need to know any of those skills. The add-ons just happen the way a normal sort of Squirrel component or function would be in the product. So that's the tour of the features, from quick startup tabs on the property panels, the new object browser, the abbreviations of numbers in the charts. But then the big thing is the add-ons at the end. We're just over time. As I say, I will be posting the recording to this webinar later on today or maybe tomorrow, so we'll send you all the link. Feel free to share that with anyone who missed the meeting. But I hope you sort of are as enthused as we are. Really, the new add-ons open up, as I say, a huge new world for us. So we're excited to see where that takes us in the future. So with that, I will leave you all to the rest of your day. Thank you very much for joining, and we will speak to you soon. Thanks very much. Bye.